Welcome, everyone. My name is Vanessa Loder, founder of vanessaloder.com, and welcome to our global gathering to bring calm to COVID. We're so glad that you're here, and we're going to kick things off now. So if you've just joined, you can share in the comments where are you joining us from and how are you feeling today? What are you hoping to get from this gathering? Now, I want to start off by just sharing some of our intentions. So we've created these global gatherings every week on Thursdays from 9:30 to noon Pacific time, and all the recordings are going to be available on YouTube and on the replay page. So if you've registered for this call, you're going to have access to all of the calls and all of the recordings. And what we're doing is our intention is to offer mental and emotional support and a sense of community during this unprecedented time when people are tempted to focus on fear and anxiety, uncertainty, and this feeling of just being really untethered. There's so much going on right now in the world with the coronavirus. And what we wanted to do was bring together some of the world's leading wisdom teachers to offer tools and resources and support to help people during this time. And the other intention we have is to amplify the support by bringing together so many wonderful teachers in one space for you all. And then we also wanted to create a sense of community and connection during a time when a lot of people are feeling really isolated. So again, if you didn't hear me mention that earlier, the reason why we're doing this as a Zoom meeting is to create a greater sense of connection so you all can really see each other and feel close to each other and connect. So today we have PhD and world-renowned neuroscientist Rick Hansen is going to be joining us in about an hour at 10:30 Pacific time, followed by Shelly Hodgen, who's an energy healer, incredibly talented energy healer who's going to be teaching you techniques to cope with fear. I'm going to be teaching you some techniques, some really practical techniques based in neuroscience and mindfulness to help you cope with some of the anxiety and the overwhelm that you might be feeling. I wanted to start off with a short guided meditation to help us both lower our anxiety and boost our immune system. Many, many years ago, over 15 years ago or so, when my mom was diagnosed with cancer for the first time, I read this book by Andrew Weil, and it's all about the mind-body connection and how our thoughts and our beliefs can actually impact our physiology, our physical body, and our ability to heal ourselves. The book is called Spontaneous Healing, and we'll put a link on the replay page in case you're interested in reading it. But the story I want to share with you all today from that book is about this young boy. And so there was a story in the book about a little boy who had a wart on his hand. Sounds so random, but he had a wart on his hand and it was giving him a lot of trouble and it was like getting infected, and his mom had tried everything to get rid of it. She had done all the topical solutions, all the over-the-counter things, and she'd even taken him to a doctor and tried to get it, I think, frozen off, whatever you do, and it wouldn't go away. It just kept coming back. And in the book, one of the things that Brian Weiss talks about, and I teach a lot of guided visualizations in my career programs and other things, and I'm such a believer in this, is the power of visualization to create change in our lives and in our health, in our physical well-being. And the key thing when it comes to visualization and having an effective visualization is you want to find the images or visualizations that trigger the strongest emotional response in your body, that you actually can really connect to and feel on a physiological level. So Andrew and by the way, I have not reread this book in like 13 years, so I'm paraphrasing this story, so if I get it a little bit wrong, I apologize, Andrew Weil. But basically what I remember is he was working with this boy to say, well, what are the images that could really click for you to help you remove this painful wart that you have on your hand? And it turned out that this little boy was fascinated with bulldozers and diggers, as many little boys are. And so then what he ended up having him do is visualize or imagine a bulldozer like digging out this painful area that he had on the top of his hand. And so he would do that for just a few minutes every day. And by the way, part of me thinks it might have even been a woman who was visualizing this. But anyway, the point is there was a bulldozer and they visualized digging that out every day. And the person who was doing the visualization said they could really feel this tingling all over the top of their hand every time they would imagine this bulldozer digging it out. And sure enough, within less than 2 weeks or so, again, I'm paraphrasing, haven't read the book in years, but very quickly, the wart was completely gone from their hand and it was healed. So it was like a spontaneous healing through the power of visualization. So I have done different guided meditations over the years to boost my immune system. And one of the things you can do when you really want to boost your immune system is to visualize your white blood cells increasing and expanding and moving all over your body and removing illness from your system. And the reason I'm sharing this story is because I'm going to take us through a guided visualization to boost our immune system. And I invite you to play around with different images that create the strongest resonance for you. So here's an example I'll give. When I was first trying to imagine boosting my white blood cell count, for whatever bizarre reason, I saw the stormtroopers from Star Wars. You know, those white soldiers, because they're white and they're even though they're bad guys, they were good guys in my body. You know, they have those like plastic like shields and so I just could imagine them like marching down my little like bloodstreams and shield, like ushering out all the illness and the disease. And then later I was like, maybe that's too violent. And then I would see my white blood cells as these Buddhist monks in long white robes, and they would just like very lovingly take any illness and be like, no, you have to leave the temple of Vanessa's body and just remove them. So I invite you to play around with whatever image works best for you and be really creative, because you are your own best authority when it comes to healing your own body. So I'm going to take us through a guided visualization to boost our immune system. And those are a couple examples of what helped me connect with something to visualize my white blood cell count increasing. So it can be helpful if there's something from like a movie or something from your life that you've seen that you then apply to the visualization to help your mind really engage and really click in with what you're wanting to visualize. And also remember, there's no wrong way to do it. Every time I do these, my mind comes in and is like, this isn't working. I don't know about this. That's a weird image. Why did you choose stormtroopers? So it's not like that doesn't happen. The mind will still chatter at you and you just go, thank you, mind, and back to the visualization. Okay, so what I'd like for you all to do is to get into a comfortable seated position, and I recommend having your legs uncrossed with your feet just resting on the floor, and you can rest your hands gently in your lap. And start off by just taking a couple of deep breaths. Starting to tune into your physical body, feeling the support of the floor, the chair beneath you. And just noticing how your body is sitting here, halfway between heaven and earth. Feeling the support and the groundedness of the earth beneath you, while at the same time noticing the spaciousness, the expansion of the sky above and all around you. And as you inhale, I'd like for you to visualize or imagine that you're inhaling a calm, peaceful energy. And with each exhale, visualize or imagine that you're releasing any tension or anxiety or worries that you've been hanging on to. Inhaling calm, peaceful energy. And with each exhale, just letting go letting yourself go, arriving into a relaxed and present state. And just for this little while that we do this today, have nothing to worry about. So, enjoy the way that feels, to not have anything to worry about. This is a luxury that very few people allow themselves. To take a little time out of your busy day to just relax. So, enjoy the way that feels. As you continue to inhale this calm, peaceful energy, and with each exhale, releasing any tension, any worry, any fear that you've been holding on to. You might even see a color or colors associated with it as you inhale this calm, peaceful energy. And as you exhale, releasing any tension, letting go, letting it all go. And as the mind wanders, gently call it back to your breath, noticing the rise and fall of your chest or belly as you inhale and exhale. Perhaps even visualizing or imagining yourself like the kelp in the ocean, where the waves might be crashing over you, small waves and big waves, and you just gently glide back and forth, riding those waves, staying anchored and grounded, while being flexible and flowing with the waves. And the kelp doesn't have any judgment, whether it's a big wave or a small wave. Imagine that seaweed just gently flowing back and forth, riding the waves. And as the mind wanders, again, gently calling it back to the breath or to the visualization of waves moving through the ocean, and you just gliding along with those waves. Think of your mind like a little puppy that's eager to go out and explore and examine everything. If a puppy ran off, you wouldn't yank the leash to call the puppy back to you. You would gently guide the puppy back. So doing the same with your attention, whenever your mind wanders, gently guiding it back with love and compassion. Coming back to the breath as you continue to inhale this calm, peaceful energy. And with each exhale, releasing any tension or stress. And now I'd like for you to create a beautiful healing oasis for yourself. So if you'd like, you can visualize or imagine what you consider to be the most beautiful and peaceful place in the world. Whatever you consider to be the most peaceful and healing and beautiful place in the world. This could be at the beach, near the ocean, could be in the forest or in a meadow. Or perhaps your healing oasis is a beautiful temple surrounded by a sacred garden and a courtyard. And you walk through that sacred courtyard and garden and then enter into this beautiful healing temple. So go ahead and take a moment to imagine whatever you consider to be the most peaceful, healing place in the world. And imagine yourself there now, feeling perhaps the sun on your skin warming you, or the sounds of birds chirping in the air, or perhaps the smell of salt water or fresh pine needles. Using all 5 senses, visualize or imagine yourself in this peaceful, healing place. And now, arriving fully in your healing oasis, I invite you to lie down. Create a really comfortable environment for yourself. Maybe you're lying on a beautiful bed or surrounded by soft cushions. Or maybe you're lying on a magic healing table that's made of gold or white light or crystals. And the crystals heal your body as you lie on this magical healing bed. So take a moment and visualize or imagine yourself lying down, relaxing on this healing bed. And as you do, as your body relaxes, you take a deep breath. Maybe you even sigh. You've arrived. Now all you have to do is just lie there, and the healing will begin. I'm visualizing or imagining that there's a magical energy in this healing oasis. And as you lie on this beautiful bed, your body begins to heal from the inside out. And now we're going to boost our immune system by focusing on our white blood cells. So take a moment and visualize or imagine that your white blood cells are multiplying and feeling strong and moving throughout your body. And you might see them as literal white blood cells, but you might also visualize or imagine that they're some healing beings, perhaps Buddhist monks in long white robes. Or as I shared, what worked for me, the stormtroopers from Star Wars. So play around, be playful and relaxed with this as you imagine or visualize your white blood cells gathering up in force to protect your body at this time. Imagine your white blood cells throughout your body being very vigilant and expanding and growing. And they're moving throughout your whole system. Visualizing, sensing, seeing any way you can your white blood cells expanding throughout your whole body, multiplying, growing. And then visualizing or imagining that if there's any sense of illness or disease in the body, the white blood cells know exactly where to go to find that little area, and they remove it from your system. So you can play around with whatever works for you, whether they're gently asking that illness to leave your body, whether they're creating and destroying and blowing things up, removing it from your system, letting go of any illness, any disease, and strengthening your immunity. And don't worry if it doesn't feel like it's working. Just tuning in to whatever does work for you in this moment. As you lie here on that healing bed, receiving the healing energy from this oasis that you found yourself in. Perhaps the sunlight is landing on your body and helping to heal you, or there's a crystal bed underneath you where you feel the healing energy of the ocean. Maybe you're on a beautiful raft floating on top of the ocean as your body receives this healing. As you continue to inhale this calm, peaceful energy, and with each exhale, releasing any tension or stress in the body. Now visualizing or imagining that your whole body is filled with this beautiful white light. If you'd like, you can even surround yourself in a pyramid of white light so that you're in the center of this pyramid. It comes down on each side of your body and goes underneath you as well. And no harm can come to you while you're in this pyramid of white light. Now completing your time in this healing oasis, if there's any other areas of the body that are wanting extra attention or love, you can send your breath there or visualize or imagine them filling with this beautiful white light. Now it's time to leave your healing oasis, coming back to the present moment. Remembering that you can go back to this place anytime that you'd like to feel a sense of calm and peace and ease. So coming back to your body in the room, feeling the support of the chair or the floor beneath you, noticing any sounds inside the room or outside the room, perhaps wiggling your fingers and toes. And as you're ready, allowing your eyes to gently open. Okay, well, we'd love to hear from a couple of you what that was like. What did you notice or experience? Was it easy to do the visualization? Was it hard? Was your mind wandering? How do you feel now compared to before we did that guided meditation? So you can either tap in the chat to share, or you can actually unmute yourself. So what did you notice or experience?
Vanessa?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hello. Thank you. That was very, very good, very profound and very relaxing.
Oh.
And for me, it manifests through, always with you, there are many synchronicities, so just fabulous. Today, my cousin contacted me with a little girl, and actually they announced me that they recovered from COVID, and they are fine. So I thought, great, they are part of the 98% of people who heal from it. So she kind of, afterwards, she just motivated me to look at a video with immune system cells growing. So I was probably already connected with you some way. And I couldn't avoid now. I was kind of in a park with her on the cover because she asked me, oh, how is it like in Charente? I would love to be with you. So I kind of imagined her and a little girl with me sitting in the park. And it was just fabulous. And we were feeling very, very great. So
oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Vanessa. And a couple of things I love about what you said. First of all, I was on a call earlier this week where someone else had family members who had the virus and then had recovered, and all the other women on the call said it's so nice to hear these stories of recovery and how for many people it is like a bad flu, but then they're okay. And it can feel very reassuring to hear those stories of, okay, 98% of the people who get this are fine. Let's remember that. And then I also just love the serendipity that you were looking at pictures of cells right before doing that guided visualization. And that's the interesting thing for all of us to think about and notice, is that wherever we put our attention and our focus in life is where we create momentum. And so take a moment and just imagine some of the scary images that you've seen on the news. Like, I don't know about you all, but when I see a body in like a protective case being wheeled to the hospital, my whole system tenses up and I get very fearful, you know, and it can even affect our behavior, right? Like my husband and I, we were kind of joking about like, why is everybody so worried about the toilet paper thing? You know, he was like, this virus doesn't give you diarrhea. Like, why is everybody? And yet I went to the grocery store, and when I saw the aisles with all the empty holes, I suddenly was like, I think I need toilet paper. And I bought like a huge thing of toilet paper. But it was the visual cue of seeing all the empty aisles in the grocery store that triggered this kind of panicked scarcity feeling in my body. So I invite you to notice, what are the images that you're taking into your system right now, and how do they make you feel? And the really good news is that you can choose to focus on that. We can all watch the news obsessively and get into more of a fear spiral, or you can take some time to be out in nature and to notice the beauty, or to sit quietly in meditation and visualize your white blood cell count increasing if you're feeling scared and nervous about being sick. So you really have so much power over the images that we choose to focus on and how that affects our entire state of being. And I just want to share a couple of these because it's fun to hear other people's. For those of you who joined late, no problem. You can always watch the recording if you want the full thing. But I loved this one. Lisa said, it felt amazing. I laid in a soothing moss bed with crystals underneath. I invited white angels to flood my system with love. So I love that. Thank you. The moss bed feels really like nurturing and grounding. So everyone, you can play around with different images to see what works for you. And then Lauren said, I'm feeling great and I'm actually used to meditation. I feel high. So thank you. Julia said, it's wonderful to slow down and meditate in community. I so agree, Julia. Kristen said, I loved it. I feel tingly all over and I didn't want to come out of it. And then a couple other folks said they joined late, but then they were able to feel the Oasis and to start to relax. Kathleen says she was in a mashup of peaceful places from around the world. I love that. I too loved the pyramid, the peaceful feeling. I feel more relaxed having been there. And Dar also said, I love the crystal bed. I had it in my love energy pool. Very cool. So you had angels bathing you with love and healing vibrations, and you felt a wonderful buzzing and a deep sense of well-being. Oh, yay. Didn't want to come out. Fantastic, very relaxing and grounding. Oh, I love, Katharina said, loved the wave picture. I surfed for the first time in February and found out that behind the huge wave, the ocean is calm. Yes. And that's a great example that Katharina said you surfed for the first time in February, and then that visual really worked for you. So the trick with an effective visualization is to find something in your real life that's a very visceral experience. So if you just went surfing, you can really connect with the feeling of the flow of riding the waves and how there's big waves, but then the ocean is calm underneath. So that's a beautiful way to kind of tune into something real that happened and then use it in the visualization. And then Dar also said, my white blood cells were strong, pulsing, emanating health and wholeness. Oh, I love this. So fun to read all the comments. Anyone else want to share what you noticed or experienced? And it looks like Amar wrote, whenever I wanted to heal my mind, I go to my father's garden and chill out with my cat. It's so great. I love it. Yeah, so we all have these, you know, powerful places we can go to heal ourselves, both physical spaces, maybe out in nature, or there's a little cozy nook in your house, or in your mind when you want to do a visualization. And what I recommend during this time of global pandemic is we need those healing spaces more right now to balance out the energy that we're feeling all around us. You know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is that I've been thinking a lot about how we have our individual consciousness. So you have your own awareness of yourself, who you are, your thoughts and beliefs, and your awareness of your own behavior, the way you can observe yourself. So we have our individual consciousness, and then we also have the collective consciousness. So how many of you have had an experience where you get on, let's say, a bus, and you just feel like the energy just feels really bad, you know, and or you walk into a room and you just get a bad feeling? Or the reverse of that, you walk into a space and it's this really like welcoming, joyful, happy feeling. Part of that is you're tuning into the collective consciousness and the energy field of that group of people. So when you get on one bus, that group of people might have a certain energy field that they're running together collectively, and you get in a different room, it might feel completely different. And so one of the things that we're all having to cope with and manage right now is not only our individual fears and anxieties and beliefs, but the collective fears and anxieties and beliefs that are so much bigger than us. And I was thinking of it as, you know, one of the reasons I love mindfulness and meditation is it helps me to notice when my attention has wandered or when I'm in a story, and to bring it back to the present moment. And I think there's a way in which during this time in particular, we can also notice not just when our individual mind is wandering, but when we're getting pulled by the collective, when we're getting sucked into something that doesn't feel good, where perhaps it's watching the news too much, or, you know, maybe, I mean, I absolutely adore my sister, but she will admit that she tends to go to like worst case scenarios in this kind of situation. So she's often wanting to talk about like post-apocalyptic situations that could happen in the world right now. And what I've noticed is that even when I've done my mindfulness practices and grounded and centered myself, I can feel really good. But when I'm around some of this collective energy for too long, I start to lose myself. And I have to kind of set boundaries to manage my own energy and my own space. And so I invite you to think about how you're being impacted by the collective and what you want to do to set the appropriate boundaries for yourself. And that could look differently for each of us. You know, maybe it means you're really not going to watch the news. I mean, hardly at all. Because at some point we say, oh, well, you have to watch the news to be informed. But do you really? Because at a certain point, it's diminishing marginal returns. I mean, you're not going to change your behavior that much more. Are you going to do anything differently as a result of watching the news at this stage? Maybe, but probably not. So just becoming aware of, sometimes our mind can come in and tell us these stories like, well, I have to stay informed, I have to watch the news. And yet when you notice the impact it has on your body, on how you feel inside, on your energy level, it's not good. So that's one way maybe it can be helpful to set a boundary, is to notice the information you're taking in and how that information makes you feel. And then also in your conversations with others. You know, what I've started doing, like I love my sister so much and I want to support her, but I've found I can only hear so much of that kind of talk before it starts to impact me and I start to get a little bit sucked into it in a way that does not feel good. And so I might say to her, you know, that's about all I can hear right now. I need to take a break from this conversation. I'm full. So I've said things like that, you know, and it's okay to set that sort of boundary with people. And the other thing I wanted to name as I was thinking about how we're impacted by the collective and by other people is that there's this funny thing that we do as human beings where when we're in a low vibration energy like fear or anger or anxiety, we want other people to meet us there. Have you ever noticed that? Like you've been really cranky and then you pick a fight with someone, you kind of, it's unconscious. It's not consciously, we want our loved ones to be happy and thriving and all these good things. But unconsciously, when we're in pain, we want them to meet us there. We kind of want them to be there with us. And so other people are doing that as well, where what I've noticed is when my husband is really in fear about the virus or his job or what's going on in the world, if I don't match his fear, he can actually get upset with me. And I've done that to others too, right? Where if they're not meeting me in this fearful, anxious place, I get kind of annoyed with them. And so that's just a normal, like, human tendency that I think we all have. It's almost this unconscious thing of, if you love me, you will join me in this fear that I'm feeling, and you will meet me here. And it doesn't really serve us. So you can notice if you're doing that to someone and take a pause and try to go, maybe take a break and get yourself grounded and centered again. You can also notice if someone is doing that to you. And they might even, what I've noticed is when I try to keep myself in a grounded, positive place and someone's in a lot of fear and I don't meet them there, they can get mad at me. They can almost feel like betrayed. And there's a way in which, if you really want to maintain your good state, you have to be a little bit okay sometimes with other people being annoyed with you. And sometimes just taking a break and coming back together can solve a lot of that. So just wanted to name a lot of what's happening in the collective. And again, it's a big reason why we're creating these gatherings, is because we wanted to put something into the collective consciousness that feels really positive and high vibration and helps people let go of some of the anxiety and the fear that you might be feeling. So I just want to pause there and see if anyone has questions or thoughts based on what I've shared so far. And I'm also just reading some of your comments. Has anyone else noticed? I'd love to hear if anyone else has noticed this phenomena of what's going on in the collective consciousness and feeling kind of pulled into it, even when you don't want to be. And what have you done to manage that or to set healthy boundaries?
Actually,
yes, hi.
Oh, sorry.
Hi.
I'll go next.
Oh, yes, sometimes I can feel, even with a prayer partner, I'll have a prayer partner, we have it's peaceful and relaxing, but once the conversation gets into the virus, my body starts to constrict. And sometimes with people, I'll think to say, oh, I noticed you sound scared. And just saying that, there's sometimes a shift in energy. There's just spaciousness and a breath. I just know it sometimes breaks the spell if I say, oh, you sound really scared, or are you scared right now? So that's all I wanted to share.
I love it. No, that's such a wise thing. I had a friend of mine as well who was getting in a fight with her husband about something like ordering the groceries, and they were like bickering about grocery deliveries, and then she realized, oh, what's really going on is I feel scared and anxious, and this isn't about the grocery ordering delivery at all. And then as soon as she named, you know what, I'm feeling really scared and anxious and uncertain, and I don't know what to do. And then her partner responded. She was a little vulnerable by naming that she felt scared, and it totally shifted the dynamic. So I think you're so right that having that awareness to name, oh, I'm feeling scared. Oh, that's what's going on right now. Or even naming, I noticed with your friend, like, oh, I noticed when you talk about the virus, my whole body is tightening and I'm feeling really scared and anxious now. And so doing it not in a blaming way, like, oh, you're making me feel more anxious, but just in a vulnerable, truthful way of like, this is what's going on for me. Yeah, I love that. And Julia shared that empathy fatigue is real. Compassion has really helped me. And it looked, I think a couple other people were going to share. Maura, were you trying to?
Yeah, I was going to share it. I just have to limit my news exposure. And I was watch the news in the morning, watch at night. Now I'm not watching at night. It may come to a point where I'm not watching any of it. If something really important happens, my family will tell me. It's just in this safe little bubble that we have here. It's better for anxiety levels to not get sucked into it. I've been doing a lot of painting and spending a lot of time in the backyard in the sunshine, and so I find just removing myself from it is what's been really helping me.
I love it. Thank you for sharing, Maura. So good. And I think we had someone else who was trying to share.
I can share. I can go. I don't know if there was someone else.
Amanda, welcome.
Hi, how are you? To the point of, you were mentioning like people will try to suck other people down to their lower vibration. And it takes a lot of effort to like try to maintain, your vibration. But at the same time, I think some of these people are almost also seeking out sources of like comfort and peace, and versus only having that unconscious sort of mindset of trying to bring you down. And so if you can maintain and are able to sort of be that beacon or rock in some capacity for others, then that's kind of a way where that could help elevate them and sort of flip it a little bit, right? So similar to even like literally this forum and why we're all even here. So things around that. Of course, the person has to be willing, but you could probably just like kind of read that and see what that requires, so that, every little bit will count and it'll ripple from there. So that was more, kind of the goal that I've sort of been setting for myself lately, for how I appear in the world.
Yeah. And what's helping you to show up in that way?
So I've, for years now, I've actually been doing a lot of things, where I've had a lot of great tools to work with myself. So I journal every single day. I've been meditating. I'm in yoga teacher training right now, even though I'm a business consultant. I've read like self-compassion books and mindfulness books and like everything you can think of and things around consciousness. And so it's just a matter of like, shifting like where your energies are and trying to like stay consistent through. It's a process basically. So it's really a maintenance regime. And this is a little bit of an awakening now in terms of like COVID, right? It's just a lot of people who say haven't had those very good, healthier practices are probably now realizing they need them more than ever too. And so I would look at people who have been doing this for a while as like sources of inspiration and hope, more so than, hopefully people can look at that and say, oh, there is a way, to be okay. and it's just kind of like role modeling it to the best degree possible. It's hard though, because it takes a lot of energy to maintain. And I feel sometimes drained by, if a lot is coming my way. And so to your point of like the boundary setting, that's where my effort is right now, is like the boundary setting piece of it. But yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you. And it really can be a call to awaken and to ask some of these bigger questions of, who am I, how do I want to show up in the world? And that's wonderful that you're able to use all your tools and be a beacon for others and role model this. So thank you for sharing. And I love what Karen wrote in the comments too. She said, every Zoom call for work starts with talk about what's going on. It's exhausting. I'm trying to change these conversations to focus on the upsides, like no commute. Yeah, Karen, that's such a wonderful point you made, because we all can choose to focus on, being grateful for some of the things that are coming out of this situation, or we can choose to focus on all the negative aspects and feel kind of more stressed out, more exhausted. My best friend from home and I, we have this like funny little thing we've been doing where we go, COVID silver lining, whenever we notice, I'm trying to give an example, like, oh, I got to like, oh, we all, a bunch of people are on Zoom, 10 girlfriends from growing up that don't normally get together are now making time to see each other on Zoom. And it's like COVID silver lining. So there's ways in which we're reconnecting with each other that we haven't in the past. And there's a lot of really great things coming from it. Or like one that I shared with her, I've always thought in the US that we spend so much money during the elections on campaigning, like the candidates. And it's like, well, now they can't have any live events. They can't spend that much money, and it's like COVID silver lining. So you could do it about anything in the most random of things. I saw that Julia, you had your hand up, so I wanted to unmute you for you to share.
Okay, yeah, what's coming up for me, especially talking to people who are either in pain, is some of my spiritual teachers have taught me the metaphor of being a sacred mirror, where you don't have distortions coming from you to either amplify their fear by joining in it with them, or their pain, or their whatever anxiety about the unknown, but that you just stay like without any distortions and can able to hear and receive, and in some way help them to hear themselves. And as long as you keep like a compassionate heart, and one that is not feeling empathy, meaning feeling the feeling itself, but having compassion, extending your heart into whatever's going on, that keeps you as a resource to them, as opposed to now both of you are kind of drowning. And it's that distance, even when you go to rescue a drowning person, it says, like, don't get pulled under by them. Yeah. And I was speaking yesterday with a woman that I'm mentoring who is actually talking about going off her antidepressants because she's noticed that she's had to step up support of her mother, who was doing in-home dialysis. It was just starting in-home dialysis. And that whole activity level of doing that, and the sense of purpose she feels, and the sense of, I can do this, she's noticing that she truly now for some time, and this has been going on for, it started maybe 6 weeks ago, that she's feeling much better and more energized. And so being able to also amplify that for people who are starting to have glimmers of positivity, confidence, strength, and saying, I see that. And so that's possible when we do that.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Julia. It's all so true, and that is possible. Yeah. And if anyone else wants to share, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand, and I can unmute you if you prefer to do it that way. I was talking to one of my favorite professors from Stanford Business School yesterday, Carol Robin, who's going to be one of our thought leaders next week at 9:30 Pacific time. So definitely join to hear her. She's amazing. And she and I were just having a conversation about leadership, because her whole session is about leadership during times of crisis. And she was talking about how, these kinds of times, they can bring out the best in us or the worst in us. And we have a choice of which way we want to go and how we want to focus our attention and our energy. And then she ended up talking a lot about, we had a whole conversation about agency and helplessness, and how many of us are feeling very helpless right now. There's this sense of this thing that's happening in the world, and you're kind of trying to protect yourself, but you don't have control over so many things right now. And Carol was talking about how this is also an opportunity for extreme creativity, both in your business and in your personal life. Whenever there's this kind of chaos, it's also an opening for creativity. And also that with your team at work, if you're in a leadership position, the more that you can help people feel a sense of agency right now, the better, because we're all feeling somewhat helpless and powerless. And so Carol's point was, this is a time in business to say, hey, what ideas do you have? Let's throw them up on the wall. Like, every idea is welcome here. And that as a leader, the more that you respond to other people by saying, yes, I'm interested in hearing that idea, that it gives that person a sense of agency in a time when they might be feeling very powerless. So it's interesting to just think about leadership and creativity, and how are you empowering people around you to come up with creative solutions during this time. And I like So I'm just looking at some of the other comments. Josh wrote, my weekly FaceTime calls with my 84-year-old mother are now daily. COVID silver lining. And Jennifer says she's trying to spiral up by thinking of something positive right now in this moment, instead of thinking about the scary what ifs, and then think about something else good. It's so beautiful, Jennifer. I think we can all start to notice when you go into that fear spiral, the anxiety spiral, and just come back to the present moment, think of something good or positive, think of a COVID silver lining moment. Yes. Okay. And then Amar shared that being in my home 24/7 gives me time to improve myself and properly exercise. COVID silver lining. There's so many. I'm going to read a couple more of these because they're just fun to hear. Olive shared, COVID silver lining. I was sometimes a bit down the past few months, and my mood is overall better despite the anxiety of the current times. The reason is that I see my daughter at home all day, and she is just so happy to be home with mom and dad. She just cheers me up. Yes, I know it's been beautiful to have more time with our children, and even just going for walks in the afternoon or the evening and seeing so many more people outside walking at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock at night when they'd otherwise be commuting. It really is wonderful to see. And Alejandra shared that what you're saying, Vanessa, is what I did with my team at work, having a planning session with the new vision for my company. Oh, I'd love to hear more. Yeah, so if anyone has examples of how you're kind of taking this time of chaos and crisis and shifting it to expand and create, we'd love to hear about that. So feel free to type in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and share or raise your hand. Oh, Amanda adopted a dog and she loves the fact that you're here all the time. COVID silver lining. Yeah, so Karen, here's a great example. Karen said, I'm in marketing and we've had to completely shift our in-person events to virtual, and it's driving a lot of creative thinking. Yes. So much creativity is coming out of this. Else have examples of creativity that you've been noticing either at work or at home? I know Jennifer shared a really cool story about some parents in the courtyard of her building. I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to share about that. I thought that was so fun how they created the game for their kids.
Sure. I'm in a condo building here in San Francisco, and there are several families that have young children, and the kids are anywhere from 2 to sort of 4 or 5 years old. And normally their parents are taking the kids out to parks, and of course the kids are in school, but now they can't do that. And so the kids are playing here within the courtyard of our building, and the parents are, I've never seen so much creativity before coming from the parents, and so actually some of the fathers in particular. And they are, one of them took a huge cardboard box, something had been delivered. They took a huge cardboard box and they cut out 2 circles to look like eyes, and then they cut out a mouth and drew around it, and they leaned it up against a wall down in the lower part of the courtyard, and they gave the kids tennis balls, and they're trying to like get the balls through the eyes of the cardboard face, and things like that. Or instead of just hopscotch, they've made all kinds of different things you jump on, and then lines that you have to follow before you get to the next hopscotch, which is a different pattern. And then just so they're doing all kinds of different things. And then they took a bucket and they put a blanket in, and they put it on the lower courtyard, and they had the kids stand in the upper courtyard, and they're throwing tennis balls down to try to hit the bucket. And so it's just been fun to see, and putting tents up outside as forts, and they're super, super creative.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and it's inspiring for everyone else to hear all the ways that people are being creative, both at home and at work. And it's sort of forced creativity for a lot of parents who are homeschooling, And I love what Julia has a fun one too. She said, how about fun as a strategy? My husband and I did a little skit of he and I singing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands with multiple verses for a family of 6 who lives in Minnesota. We had costume changes for each verse and waved age-appropriate toys and props for each person. Our goal was just to make them all laugh, and we succeeded. And then Dar shared that she took the leap and went Facebook Live for the first time, doing a love energy pool guided imagery, COVID silver lining. Thank you for sharing that. I love it. So there's so much creativity that's happening during this time. And then looks like Lisa said, our neighborhood has a community connection app. We challenged everyone to design a rainbow and put it in their front window. The kids then walk around the neighborhood counting the number of rainbows. Oh, I love that. I might try that at my neighborhood. Lotus said, having more time with my kids and new projects. And Jackie shared that I've been feeling the global stress and grief very strongly. Prioritizing self-care and taking time to connect to the light has helped. When I tune in, I can also feel the light workers of the world connecting up to provide support. There's a big shift and there will be positive changes as well as the sad. Yeah, thank you, Jackie. And that is part of our goal with these gatherings, is for everyone to connect with each other and feel like you're not alone and that we all can uplift the collective consciousness together. So we're waiting for Rick Hansen to join, and there's a couple numbers that just dialed in that might be Rick. So I wanted to just check in. There's a 617 number. Hello, I just unmuted you. Is this Rick or is this someone else? Okay, I'm gonna assume it's not Rick. So Rick, if you're here, you can send me a note in the private chat. So hopefully in the next couple minutes, we'll be joined by the wonderful Rick Hansen, and I'm gonna more formally introduce him once he's here. And I said, I'm gonna continue reading some comments while we're waiting. Heather shared, in Philly, I love seeing them all over the neighborhood and on the sidewalks in chalk. Oh, that's for the rainbows. What a cool idea. Oh, they're doing the rainbow projects in the UK too, Jackie said. Very cool. So fun to hear all these uplifting stories. Anyone else have an example or a story of something that's going on in your neighborhood? Or anything, any stories of creativity that you've observed in your, either at work or in your personal life?
So I before COVID started, I actually started like a women's circle that was meeting in person every month. And then we ended up going on Zoom to stay connected. And so just trying to find the rainbow that way, with the silver lining of the technology that's out there to help serve us, and to stay kind of there for each other, to support each other along the way. And so we're all just happy to like just be connected. And that's helped really deepen things overall, the consistency of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Who else would like to share something? I'm just texting with Rick's assistant to make sure he has the link to join us.
Hi, my name is Jamie. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Jamie. Welcome.
I don't mean to bring us down from this. I mean, I'm trying very hard to model, I've joined, this global gathering. I've reached out. I'm doing a Yale course that was offered online about, the science of well-being. I'm trying to model things for my adult children who've had to return home. But what's difficult is, as we say, move from empathy to compassion to care, to give ourselves self-care. But with that demographic, for those of us with those young people in their 20s who've lost their milestones, like my daughter's senior year in college, and all the loss that they experience, even though I try to model positivity and the COVID silver lining, it's hard not to get sucked into the pain of that generation that, we're those of us who are older, we've had a reasonably carefree existence. We've been able to travel. We've, lived in a beautiful, environment that we hadn't destroyed yet. But it's hard not to get pulled down or to help lift them up from that pain of that grieving that they're going through now. So all of these wonderful positive shifts are great, but you still witness those of us who are living with those children or not being able to see our older parents. It's hard not to get back into the empathy. So I throw that out there because I'm struggling with that. I tried to do all the things we're talking about, but I can't help but feel the pain of sort of this particular demographic.
Yeah, thank you for
Vanessa?
sharing. Oh, yes?
My name is Lisa Durier, and I just wanted to respond, if you don't mind, for Jamie, because I think I may have something that is helpful. Jamie, I have children at the same level, and I just want to share with you that this is now our second, I guess they call them natural disasters. And on our first one, we came out of that in a very positive way because the children learn resiliency and they find their own power from within. So while it seems incredibly painful and sad at this point, I just want to let you know that that process of walking through very hard times to get to the other side of it at that particular age is something that will be so positive for them going forward. And it's hard to know that, but you just have faith at this point that it actually will bring them something of great benefit and value.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. And, it is a fine line between how do we honor the grief, the real feelings that we're having of sadness or helplessness or powerlessness. What is the appropriate way to honor that while also noticing when our mind is creating a spiral of stories that are making that worse than it needs to be? It's sort of in my own life, I've noticed that's a fine distinction between when does an impulse or a wave of grief naturally arise in my body, and it's time for me to set aside some space and honor that and feel all those feelings. And then research shows those feelings last less than 2 minutes if you actually let yourself sit and feel the difficult feelings. So when is it time to do that? And when is it a moment where my mind is telling me stories that are causing me to go into fear and anxiety and panic, and perhaps I want to ground myself in presence in the current moment and not let my mind spin me out into kind of a downward spiral of anxiety. And so I think those are different things, and there's an appropriate response for each depending on where you're at. But there is a way in which our society and our culture doesn't really talk about grief, doesn't really honor grief, doesn't encourage people to create the space to grieve. And that's a very real issue. So thank you, Jamie, for bringing that up. I appreciate it. And I love what Lisa shared about how this is a time to teach your children and for them to learn for themselves what it means to be truly resilient. That's a great reframe as well. And then I also wanted to share.
Vanessa.
Oh, yes.
This is Carol. How are you?
Hi, Carol.
Hi. So I wanted to just chime into this conversation a little bit that Lisa started, which is, I think there's a difference between either or thinking and both and thinking. And so when it comes to feelings, we can feel a lot of different things at the same time. We can feel we can feel angry and grateful. We can feel worried and hopeful. We can actually, we have the capacity as human beings to hold multiple feelings. And in fact, trying to squelch any of them, which I think is where you're going, doesn't work because we end up leaking in some weird way. So I'm not advocating suppression. I'm advocating holding the multiple feelings. What the resilience is that you're talking about, Lisa, that the kids will develop, and the are going to be able to do, Jamie, right now. And that's a lesson in and of itself for our kids. And then beyond that, I would say that the choice becomes, where do you spend your time and energy based on those feelings? That becomes the choice, not whether to feel it or not. You're going to feel them all. But, you know, the longer we spend in the feelings that are more depleting, the more depleted we get. And the longer we spend in the feelings that are uplifting, the more uplifted we feel. So I just thought I'd weigh in on maybe a little different way of thinking about that.
I love it. Thank you, Carol. Such a good point. And everyone, Carol's going to be one of our thought leaders next week. She's an amazing leadership coach and one of my favorite professors from Stanford, has so much wisdom to share. So you just got a little taste of Carol.
I wanted to add something too, and to piggyback on what Carol just said. In some of my indigenous spirituality practice, they taught us that emotions live in the South, where water also is, out of the 4 elements. And so emotions are, when they're healthy, they flow. So, and they show up with all different things, and there's different things in them. It's when we try to dam them up or, you know, freeze them or something like that, that they end up, like Carol said, leaking out in all these other ways. And so when I think about that, when I'm feeling any emotion and I think, oh, let this flow, then I'm just allowing it and I'm in the experience. And I don't know how long it's going to be whitewater, and I don't know when, you know, the calm is going to come. But when I think of it as flow, then it's not so permanent and it's not concrete, it's water.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it, Julia. And this whole conversation about our emotions and choices and how do we focus our energy and attention is such a perfect segue to our next speaker, Rick Hansen,